Math 3, Unit 7, Section 2. So today we're going to be mainly talking about moving from general to descriptive form by completing the square. So we kind of previewed a little bit of that yesterday when we were talking about how we took the b value and divided by 2 and then squared it in order to get the c value. So as the end of Section 1 notes. Before we begin though, we just want to briefly talk about a circle. And a circle is the set of all points in a plane that are equidistant from a given point in the plane called the center. A radius is any segment whose endpoints are the center and a point on the circle. The equation of a circle in descriptive form, and we talked about this yesterday, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center of a circle is h comma k, and the radius of a circle is r. And then this is just our little side note here from yesterday about how to find the perfect square. Okay, so if you look at these examples, notice how it doesn't have any of the parentheses, the x's aren't together, y's aren't together. So in order to do this, we are going to complete the square for the x's and also for the y's. Okay, and so I'm going to show you my way of doing it. There's other ways, but this is how I find to be the easiest. Okay, so I'm going to make a parenthesis and I'm going to write x squared. Now when we're completing our square for the x squared, we need our x term. So I'm going to go minus 6x, and then I'm going to go plus, and I put a blank. Okay, so we're going to end up completing the square on that problem. Okay, and then I'm going to go up and set my y part. So we're going to go y squared minus 2y plus blank. Now this number right here, the 4 that doesn't have like an x or a y with it, we're going to move it to the other side. And so when I move it to the other side of the equation, it's going to become what? Good. Negative 4. And so there's already a 0 here, so 0 minus 4 makes negative 4. If there are multiple numbers there, you would just combine them. And then, as in everything with math, in order to balance things out, like if I'm going to add these numbers to this side, in order to balance it out, I would need to do what? You would need to add the same numbers to the other side. So think about a scale. You know, if you are adding something to one side of the scale, if you add the same thing, it balances out, right? And so if I'm going to add a number here and add a number here, I have to add the same numbers to the other side of the equation in order for it to be balanced out. Okay, so now we are going to complete the square. So do you guys remember what would I do here in order to complete the square?
You have to determine the square.
So you start by dividing this term by 2. So we go negative 6 divided by 2 makes negative 3, and then you square it. And negative 3 squared is 9. So 9 goes in this blank, and in order to balance it out, 9 goes into the first blank on the other side. Do you remember, because this is now a trinomial, how would I write that as a square? X minus 3 squared, right? So if we were factoring this, right, the two numbers that add to be negative 6 and multiply to be a positive 9 are negative 3. So it's x minus 3 and x minus 3, which is x minus 3 squared. Remember that it's also always this half number is the number that goes in the parentheses for making our square. Okay? So this part right here factors to be this. Is everybody okay with that? All right. So then if we go over here to this one, we would take negative 2 divided by 2, which is negative 1, and then we square it, which makes 1. Good. So 1 goes into each of those blanks. And so when we're writing that one as a square, it'll be what?
minus 1 squared.
Very good. Y minus 1 squared equals, and then all we're going to do is simplify this. So we're just going to add all those numbers together. So negative 4 plus 9 is
Positive 5.
positive 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. Okay? And so this right here is my equation. Now it's in descriptive form. We like descriptive form because it's very easy to find our center and our radius. So in this problem, what would be my center now?
3, 1.
Good, 3, 1. And then my radius, we always set this up as an equation, so r squared equals 6, and in order to just get r, we would take the square root of both sides, and so we find that r equals root 6, and that can't be simplified. Okay, questions on this problem before we move on to the next one? Yes?
Yeah, how'd you get 6?
How did I get 6 right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Oh, yeah, that's 6. Sorry.
So all these numbers on this side, negative 4 plus 9, those two numbers make 5, and then 5 plus 1 makes 6.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so let's try B. So do you notice on B how there isn't, so we have an x squared term, but do you see how there's no plain x term? So do we need to complete the square with the x? No. So the x squared, we're just going to write that as x squared. And so the x value of our center is going to end up just being what?
0.
0. Good. Okay, now do you see with the y squared how there's a plain y term? So that one we have to complete the square. Okay, so we're going to have y squared minus 4y plus blank. Okay, and then this negative 16 that doesn't have an x or a y, we're going to move it to the other side, and so it's going to become what?
Positive 16.
Very good. And then because I have one blank on the left side of the equal sign, we have to have
1 blank.
one blank on the right. So if we have one blank, we have one on each side. If we have two, we have two on each side. Okay, so we're always balancing, making it consistent. Okay, so completing the square. Why don't you go ahead and finish this problem and see how you do? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. What is the first thing we would do on this?
Divide negative 4 by 2.
Good. So negative 4 divided by 2 makes negative 2, and negative 2 squared is?
Positive 4.
Very good. So 4 goes into each of my blanks. Okay, when I write that as a square, what does it become?
Y minus 4 squared.
Y minus 2 squared. Good, because, and just remember that it's always the number that you get once you divide by 2. Okay? Equals, and then we combine those numbers there, and 16 plus 4 is 20. Good. Okay, so this is my equation, and then now we're just going to state, well, what is the center and what is the radius? So what is my center on this problem?
0, 2.
Good. 0, 2 is correct. In order to find our radius, we go r squared equals 20. We take the square root of both sides. R equals, and then 20 breaks down to what?
4 and 5.
4 and 5, and 4 breaks down to
2 and 2.
2 and 2, so pair of 2s, a 5 left over. So my radius is written as?
2 radical 4.
Perfect. Okay, questions on this one? No, not too bad? Good. All right, next one. So on C, notice that your X's and Y's and things are on different sides. you want all of your x's and y's on the left, and any number that doesn't have an x or y is on the right. And so if you want to like subtract 6x and add 2y to both sides, because we want these numbers on the left. Now 7, we want it to move to the other side, and that one will become a -7. Good. So now let's go ahead and go through and set this up. So my first parenthesis will be what?
X squared
minus 6x.
Good.
plus
Okay, my next parenthesis will be
y squared plus 2y plus y.
good. And then that equals, and don't forget about your number, and this one is
-7.
good, -7, and since I have 2 blanks on the left, I have to have
2 blanks to the right.
2 blanks on the right. Very good. Okay, so now we're just going to complete the square. So we do that by taking our b term. So -6 divided by 2 makes, and we square that, which is 9. So 9 goes into each of the first blanks. For the y's now, we go 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and we square it, which is 1. So 1 goes into each of the second blanks. Am I going too fast? Okay. All right, so what's my first square?
X minus 3.
Good, x minus 3 squared. Okay, my y is going to be what?
Y plus 1 squared.
Good. And then we combine all these numbers here together, and we get
Positive 3.
+3. Okay, so we have our equation. What is my center?
3 comma -1.
Good. 3, -1. And radius, we're going to go r squared equals 3, so that means that r equals
Radical 3.
radical 3. Okay, are we good? All right. D. I know, it has a fraction. Can you believe it?
Fraction, I was like, what is that?
Is that sideways one?
It will be okay. So I'm going to show you how to work through it. But it's the same as the others. You just have a fraction. Don't let it scare you. You're going to be okay. All right. So the first thing we know that we're going to do is we're going to end up taking this number, that is a fraction, and moving it to this side because it doesn't have an x or a y connected to it. And so that's going to end up being positive 111 over 4.
Jesus Christ. So weird.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to work this out just like we did the others. And so we're going to put all of our x's together. And so my first parenthesis is going to be what?
X squared minus 7x plus y.
Good. Okay, plus, and then my y parenthesis is going to be?
Y squared plus 6y plus y.
Good. And then we have 111 over 4. And since I have 2 blanks on the left, I'm going to have 2 blanks on the right. You guys are amazing. Okay. So the first one, and we did one just like this in our notes yesterday. Okay. And so we take half of -7 and we leave it as a fraction since it doesn't divide evenly. Okay? It's not a big deal. I promise. Okay. And then we square it just like we did before. And when you square a fraction, you just make sure that you square the top and you also square the bottom. And so that ends up making what? Positive 49 over 4, right? So -7 squared makes a positive 49. 2 squared makes 4. Okay, so 49 over 4 is in my first blank. And notice here, and it won't always be this way, but look, they both have
4.
common denominators.
Oh,
And that's what you need for fractions. That's kind of cool. Okay, anyways. Well, I mean,
and we both. Oh my gosh,
okay.
you can divide.
All right, so y's. What am I going to do with the y's?
You're going to divide by 2.
Good. 6 divided by 2 makes 3, and then we square it, which makes 9. So 9 goes into the other blanks. That one, not so nice because it doesn't have a denominator, so we're going to have to fix that. but we'll do that in a minute. So starting with our square, just like before, we always put the number for our square is that half number. Well, in this case, we're just going to put the fraction though. So it's just going to be x minus 7/2 squared. Okay, plus for my y, it's going to be what?
Wait, you don't want 49/4?
Remember, it's always your half number. So it's negative 7/2 is my half number. 3 is my half number. Okay. So for the y's, it's going to be
Y plus 3.
y plus 3 squared. Good. Equals. Okay. So now we just have to combine our like terms over here. So 111 plus 49, 160 divided by 4, does that reduce?
40.
Yeah.
To 40. That's nice. Okay, and 40 plus 9 makes 49. Okay, if not, could you have given 9 a denominator of 4? Yes. Okay. So what is my center here?
7/2 negative 3.
Good. And we're going to go r squared equals 49. Take the square root of both sides, and r equals 7. I know. You guys thought it was ugly, and it wasn't so bad.
I mean, it's still ugly, but
Okay, do we have questions there? All right, let's go ahead and turn over to the other side. We have some fun word problems here. Ish, word problems ish. Okay. So it says that to prove that the circle with the equation 20 equals x squared plus y squared minus 2 parentheses x plus 2y is congruent to the circle with center at 0, 0 and a radius of 5. Okay. How could we do this? So basically there are two equations there. Okay. We have the first equation. Sorry. We have the first equation right here. And then the second equation is here, but you're going to have to write the equation. Okay? So the first one up here, we're going to have to complete the square and do stuff in order to get it into the form so we can actually find the center and radius. Make sense? Okay. So number one, I don't like how 20 is on the left and everything else is on the right. Okay? So I'm just going to flip around the entire equation. Whenever you flip everything around, you don't have to change any signs. You don't have to do any subtracting or anything. You can just flip everything. So we're going to write this as x squared plus y squared minus 2 parentheses x plus 2y equals 20. What do you think that we should do next on this?
Distribute.
Very good. Distribute is correct. So we're going to distribute negative 2 through there. So now I have x squared plus y squared minus 2x minus 4y equals 20. Do you guys know what we'll do next?
Do what we did before.
Yep, complete the square. So go ahead and put that into the correct equations here. Okay, so the first parenthesis should be x squared minus 2x plus blank. The second parenthesis should be y squared minus 4y plus blank equals 20, and then what?
Plus 2 squares.
Good, 2 blanks. Okay, to complete the square, what do we do?
Divided by 2.
Good. Negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. So 1 goes into each of the blanks on both sides. Then we go to our y equation. Negative 4 divided by 2 is,
Negative
and we square that, which makes
positive.
positive 4. And so 4 goes into each of the second blanks. So we write this equation. The first one is going to be x what?
Minus 1.
Good. X minus 1 squared plus my second equation will be
X minus 2.
y minus 2 squared equals, and when we combine these together, we get,
25.
very good, 25. And so based on this information, what is my center here?
1 and 2.
1, comma, 2. And my radius would be what?
5.
Very good. Okay, so this is my information here. Okay, and so it says prove that this circle is congruent to the circle with this center at radius 5. Okay, this is actually my second equation. My first equation is this other one because we're proving that this is congruent to this. Okay, so we could write this equation. We don't necessarily have to. Really, when you're graphing and proving things, you really only need to know your center and your radius. And so do you guys see how they both have a radius of 5? But their centers are at different places. And so in order to prove that they're congruent, you could end up translating them to end up putting them on top of each other. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And so if you look over here in the steps, it says show the radius from the first circle is congruent to the radius from the second circle. So as you can see right here, we have shown that both of the radiuses are the same. Okay, and then it says indicate the translation required to map the first circle to the second circle. And so you could draw a little graph here. My original equation here is at 0, 0, right, for my circle. The center of my second circle is at 1 up 2. And so where would you have to move it?
Right 1.
Right. 2.
Right. Okay, to map the first circle to the second circle. Good. So you go right 1 and then up 2. Another way you could have this written is, you know, x plus 1 and y plus 2 in the translation like that. If you said up 1 and right 2, that would also be acceptable. Like basically, this is 3 different ways it could be written. Okay? All of them acceptable. The one thing you just have to be careful of is like, what are the instructions telling you to do? Like, are they asking you to move the second one to the first or the first to the second? Because it would give you opposite things. Correct? Okay. All right, any questions there? Was that too difficult? Not really.
That was all I had to do.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so F, this one is just slightly different. And this one is dealing with a dilation. Do you guys remember what a dilation means? So when you dilate something, think about when you go to the eye doctor and they dilate your eyes. They make it, actually dilation is usually bigger. But you can think of it something becoming bigger or smaller. So you're just taking something and you're expanding it. So you're not really, it's still the same circle, you're just like stretching it out. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So on this one, and pay attention to like the steps, and they even give you hints in your homework. It says show the center from the first circle is congruent to the center from the second. And then you'll find the ratio of the dilation by just, the ratio is just your fraction of the two different radiuses. All right, so we need to complete the square. So again, the first thing that I notice with this equation is how everything is flipped around. And that bothers me. So I start by just rewriting it with the equal sign on the right with 135. So x times x plus 6 plus y times y plus 10 equals 135. What will we do now?
Distribute it.
Good. Distribute that through. So we get x squared plus 6x plus y squared plus 10y equals 135. Okay, what will be our next step here?
Kind of, like rid of the square thing, right?
Good. Make your parentheses so we can complete the square. X squared plus 6x plus blank plus, and then we have y squared plus 10y plus blank equals 135, and then what?
2 blanks.
Good, 2 blanks. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is take our b value and we divide it by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So 9 goes into each of the first blanks. For the y's now, we go 10 divided by 2, which is 5, and 5 squared is 25. From there, my square for the x's is x what? Good. X plus 3 squared. Plus my y's is going to be, good, y plus 5 squared equals, and then we combine all these together, and what do you get?
169.
Very good. Okay, so what is my center for this? Good. -3, -5. And what would my radius be on the circle? 13 is correct. Okay, so we have all of our information here. Okay, now the other circle said that it has a center at -3, -5, and a radius of 3. So let me just write this down. Center is at -3, -5, and the radius is at 3. Now, just for fun, to make sure we remember how to do it, could you guys write this into an equation for me? It's not really necessary, I just want you to. Just write in your notes. I'm going to give you just, so take this information right here and write the equation of the circle. I just want to make sure you know how to do it. So remember, you're just kind of like going backwards. Okay, so this equation would be what? X what? Good, x plus 3 squared plus y plus 5 squared equals
9.
Very good. Okay, so remember that when you're taking your center, you're always getting the opposite of what's in parentheses. So when you want to get a -3, in here it has to be a +3. When you're going to get a -5, when it comes out, in here it has to be a +5. And then this value is always squared at the end. Okay, some of you look confused. So again, our equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So remember, this means that when you're getting your center, you're always setting it equal to 0, so you're taking the opposite value.
Where'd you get the 3 from?
Well,
Oh, radius of 3 inside, never mind. I'm stupid.
Okay, so we're good. Okay, so do these have the same centers, each of these equations?
yeah.
Yes. So we've shown that they each have the same center, and then it just says to find the ratio of the dilation. Okay, and so the ratio of the dilation is just 13/3. You're taking your two radiuses or radii and dividing them, okay? 13 divided by 3, you can leave it like that, or you could reduce it to 4 1/3. And that's it. Yes?
Did you get the 13?
This ratio? Or ratio, this, sorry, not this ratio. This radius and this radius. That's how I got the 13 and the 3.
It's gonna be written on plus like.
All right, any other questions here?